Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to week 4 in CU 122. Chef Suzanne and I welcome you to another fine live session. And before we go any further, once again, rock the house in week 3. This class did fantastic. Good job with your on-time submission rate. It dropped just a little bit this week, and that's okay. I know we can come back and we can get it going again next week. So hang in there, really work on trying to get all your assignments in on time and make sure you get all those knowledge checks done as well. So congratulations to everybody. I think everybody did fantastic with their sausage last week, and I hope that was a good experience for all. Had quite a few questions, and I really appreciate, and I know Chef Suzanne does too, all those students that are reaching out asking additional questions for help, and that's what we're here for. So thank you very much, because we want you to succeed and be the best. And sometimes, you know, you got to pick up the phone and call or send a message. It doesn't hurt. So Chef Suzanne Lasagna, how was week 3?
It was really good. I'm still in the process of grading. Had a lot more later in the week submissions than we've had in the past, so that was kind of a bummer. So they kind of all come in at the same time. So it wasn't quite the stagger that makes it a little easier to turn them around and get them right back. But I did see some great ones to share for this week. First, I will say that this is one of those works that I felt truly inspired because I have to look at all of this amazing food. So I had to cook. So there y'all go. See, there's me.
I love it.
Right? I made pickles and breakfast sausage because I had to look at all of you, and I could not be the only one not having any pickles. Matter of fact, I made the mistake of leaving my pickles on the counter, and I had about 10 or 12 people come over and go swimming while I was working. And I went back in, and my bowl of pickles is empty. There's 4 little pickles floating. That is it. They got my pickles. So I guess they were good, but I don't have any pickles. But I did freeze the sausage, so they didn't take that.
Oh.
So I did get some great photos. These I loved. I know these aren't the most riveting photos, but the mise en place photos here are just to die for this week. So I know some have had questions like, what should my mise en place photos look like? Like this. Get everything measured, get it all in one place. One picture, then you don't have to worry about trying to, like, did I take a picture of that? Did I get a picture of that? Boom, it's all in one place.
Mm-hmm.
Roy went above and beyond this week. Not only did he make his beautiful cucumbers, but he even used them as a garnish on some very lovely salmon.
That's a great pairing, by the way.
Yes.
So congratulations.
I saw that, and that made me instantly hungry for some salmon. I was like, ooh, that looks good.
Yeah.
And Jennifer decided that cucumbers wasn't nearly enough, so she's one of those folks that said, I'm going to pickle some other things. So she did some red onions and some radishes. So I assume they ate really good at Jennifer's house this week. Here, I had actually asked a handful of students. I throw out some challenges to some students every now and then, and I had asked for some garnishing. Use your cucumbers to garnish this week. And so Carlandria just wowed, and she ate some really good looking stuff this week and garnished with her beautiful pickled cucumbers. Taylor also garnished her chicken and waffles.
Love it.
Because that looks amazing.
Uh-huh.
So like I said, I didn't get a ton of photos this week to use, but the photos that I have seen coming in this week have been pretty darn amazing. So keep that up. I do have, before I forget, do have a couple of folks that may have had issues submitting this week. So to anybody listening out there in person and in live session land, be really careful about submitting work from the app because it isn't always going through. So you might be able to work on the app or on your phone or tablets, but try and get to a computer to submit, or at least get to a computer to double check that your submission has gone through. Because I actually had that come up where I didn't grade it, but it never came through. To me, it showed up in the papers that, yeah, they've submitted, but it never came through. So I just don't want anybody to be thinking we forgot about you. Because I didn't forget about you. I didn't.
Great.
So they rocked this week, Chef. They really did. But I'm still grading, so I'm sure there's more rock stars coming along.
Great job, everybody. Thank you very much, Chef Suzanne. That was absolutely fantastic. And I always look forward to that presentation. because I love seeing how everybody's accomplishing things. So absolutely fantastic. Great job, everybody. Much appreciated. We had several students that reached out this week as well in regards to substitutions. Could I do this? Could I do that? Could I do this? And there are times when it's warranted, and there are certain reasons, dietary restrictions, can't find a product, etc. I like the way you think when you pick up the phone and you call and say, hey, can I do this? Because a true chef makes it happen. And so good job, everybody, for reaching out and asking. I think that's absolutely fantastic. So does anybody have any questions about week 3? Everybody feel solid about it? Let's rock and roll and take a look at what's coming our way this week. Excellent work once again in week 3, everybody. Fantastic. It's very encouraging to see everybody's progress and the commitment that everybody's making. Please remember to stay on top of your attendance. It's extremely critical. It takes a lot of time to send out all those messages every day, tracking people down and making sure that you're there. So about once every 3 to 4 days, make sure you're posting attendance. We do put a weekly prep list that is in the weekly presentation, which is on the class page already, and it gives you a suggestion on how you should lay your week out. We understand that you can't do that all the time because there are life things that happen, but try to keep that attendance posted. It really helps you. Those who maintain perfect attendance are the ones that always succeed. So, and do your best to submit your assignments early. Chef Suzanne alluded to the fact that a lot of them came in on Tuesday and Tuesday night, and which creates kind of this big snowball effect. We understand you can't always get them in early, and that's okay, and nobody's going to get penalized. But try to work ahead of the game a little bit, and that's what chefs do. We are proactive versus reactive. So do your best to stay ahead of the game. The earlier you submit it, the earlier you get it back. You never want to wait at the end of the line. So rock and roll with that. Does anybody have any questions? Anything? Nope. All right, ladies and gents, let's take a look at week 4 here in CU 122. We are moving on to the world of the incredible edible egg. And eggs are fantastic in the kitchen, and they are virtually in every corner and in more dishes than you could ever imagine. So this week, we really want to focus on our research materials. There's some great videos in there that are really important, that are going to help you get through this week in a successful manner. And then our knowledge checks. We have 2 knowledge checks. Don't forget, everybody, that you can take those knowledge checks as many times as you like, and only the highest score will stick. So make sure you remember that. And then taking a look at our live session. Thank you, everybody, for being here. And if you can't, make sure you watch the live session archive. And then our assignments this week in the kitchen, we're working with eggs. We have eggs over easy, eggs poached, and then hollandaise sauce, which are critical basic elements. Attend or watch the live session on Wednesday. Read or complete the research materials on Thursday. So tomorrow, sit down with a cup of coffee, read those research materials, and get ahead of the game. And then also on Thursday, complete both knowledge checks. Take you 15, 20 minutes, and you're done. Friday, sit down, review that assignment, create a prep list, purchase mise en place. Do all that on Friday. Saturday and Sunday, prepare that assignment. Submit it, but make sure you check it against the rubric before you send it in. And just like Chef Suzanne was speaking about a moment ago, make sure that you submit through the actual Moodle page on a desktop or laptop, because sometimes the app isn't so friendly when it comes to doing that. Adjust and resubmit as needed on Monday and Tuesday. Any questions about our week coming up? All right, ladies and gents, we talked about the conversions knowledge check. Here is an example right here for everybody. It is in your weekly presentation. I know those conversion knowledge checks get a little old after a while, but you will be thankful one day. It's very, very important. So, all right, everybody, we are moving into the world of the incredible edible egg. It is something, like I mentioned a moment ago, that we use in so many different aspects of the world of culinary arts, from savory to sweet, to appetizers, to entrees, to desserts, to entire meal periods such as breakfast. The egg is devoted. So it's something that you really need to take a good consideration. The better you understand your ingredients in a dish, the more successful you're going to become. here's a couple of hints that are going to help you work with eggs. Always store eggs on the bottom shelf. Now, you might be smiling and saying, no, I know that, but it's amazing how many people will stick the eggs on the middle shelf in the walk-in. Chef Suzanne is smiling because she knows what I'm talking about. And you know what? Eggs get knocked, bumped, tripped, spilled, and guess what? They drip onto whatever's down below on the bottom shelf. Your local health department will also make sure that you are following that regulation. They like to check that first thing when they come in. Eggs should always be stored on something as well. So for example, in the restaurant industry, we don't buy a dozen eggs at a time. We buy eggs in a case that has 15 flats. Each flat has 30 each eggs on it. So it's a little square that has eggs on it. Those should always be stored on a pan in the walk-in to prevent any type of cross-contamination. An egg left at room temperature for 1 day will age more than an egg left in the refrigerator for 1 week. So here in the United States, when they process our eggs, they do wash the exterior, which removes the protective coating. So our eggs are not shelf stable like they are in many other countries. I know down in Mexico, we do not refrigerate eggs because they do not wash the eggs. Here in the US, we do, which helps prevent the spread of foodborne illness. So be conscientious of that. And then egg whites are considered the most perfect protein for the human body. So they're very, very important, absolutely delicious. And then a great source of vitamin D is found in the egg yolk. You know, a lot of people say egg yolks are bad for you, and that is not true. What is true, a lot of egg yolks are bad for you because one egg yolk only has 5 milligrams of cholesterol in it, which isn't a tremendous amount. The human body does need cholesterol. What happens is that people overconsume the cholesterol and leads to health-related problems. So, you know, be careful. And then the most common egg size in the commercial kitchen is the large egg. So whenever we're talking about recipes here at Escoffier, just like we do in industry, we're always referring to large eggs. A large egg weighs 1.75 ounces generally, but in bakeries you will find that we always weigh those out just to ensure that we have it all right. Does anybody have any questions about eggs? Chef Suzanne? How many eggs does the average hen lay a year?
I have no idea.
Does anybody know? Does anybody know?
I feel like if this was a Jeopardy, I would have not got that question right.
I know. This is difficult. Well, a hen lays an egg every 24 to 36 hours, but they do take a little time off during the year, just like the rest of us, which equates to around 300 eggs per year is what they produce. So.
Ooh, Denise got that really close. She said about 260 in the chat box. So yay,
Good
Denise.
job, Denise. I like that.
They're knowing her eggs.
Raise the roof. Yeah, I like that. That's pretty good. So it's always interesting, and I bring that up because it's always interesting to talk to your customers at the table. And, you know, they say, hey, by the way, did you know? And it's a good conversation starter table side. This week, ladies and gents, since we're working with eggs, we're going to talk a little bit about some of the kitchen equipment that we use when working with eggs, which are some delicate equipment. The Teflon egg pan, critical element in the kitchen. The Teflon egg pan was invented, or Teflon was invented by the same people that invented the Kevlar vest back in the 1930s. So it's been around for a little while, but you really want to make sure that you never ever use a metal or an abrasive cleaner on a Teflon pan. Once you get into industry, if you go into the dish pit and you grab what we call a curlicate or a stainless steel sponge and start scrubbing that pan, you might hear from your chef pretty quickly. They don't like that. Because what it does is it removes the Teflon from the surface of the pan, and guess where that Teflon goes when you're preparing food? And it's not the healthiest thing to eat. Another thing to be conscientious about Teflon or Teflon pans, Teflon is not designed to cook at high heat. It is designed for low temperature cooking for items such as eggs, right? At certain temperatures above about 350 degrees, Teflon gives off toxic fumes, which has caused cancer in some laboratory animals. So that sounded canned, didn't it, Chef Suzanne?
What's that?
That sounded a little canned, like it caused a.
It did, but I was hanging on it. I was like, oh,
Yeah.
that totally sounds like an ad. Absolutely can.
It wasn't
I will
canned.
actually add, not necessarily from the health factor. It is really easy to ruin Teflon pans, but they're so important when you are making eggs. I am that chef in my business. Those get locked in the office, and the only time they come out is when they need to be used. Until then, they're carefully and lovingly stacked with a towel in between them to keep them in beautiful shape, where anybody that thinks about touching them with anything metal is probably going to be hearing a lot about it. So yeah. They are guarded with even at my house, I guard my Teflon pan, my egg pan, because I eat eggs almost every single day. I love eggs. So I guard and protect my Teflon egg pans.
It's sacrilegious to put something metal into a Teflon pan. So make sure that you're not using any metal spoons or anything like that. They're not a tremendously expensive pan, but once that Teflon starts coming up, it does cause a health concern, and at high temperatures, it also does cause a health concern as well. You know, the stoves in the restaurant industry are radically different from what we use at home. They're very durable. You'll most likely find units that have been around for quite a while. They actually break completely down, so you can clean them from top to bottom very easily. Something you need to be careful about, though, the average home gas stove produces about 8,000 BTUs, which is British thermal units, and that's how we gauge the strength of a flame. In the restaurant industry, we average about 15,000 BTUs per burner, so the flame coming out of there is quite a bit hotter and quite a bit stronger, so you're going to cook quite a bit quicker. So be very conscientious of that once you get into the industry. And you will also notice that most of these stoves will also have pilot lights that are burning constantly. Do not put them out at the end of the shift, because that will force your kitchen to fill with gas. Leave them alone, right? You ever have somebody do that, Chef Suzanne?
Oh, yes. Yes, yeah. Especially when I was teaching at a ground school. Yes, I would come in the morning and open up the doors and automatically smell gas and know that either a burner was left on, or more than likely a brand new student blew out all the pilot lights. So I actually started checking those at the very end of every day. So we didn't blow up or start a fire or somebody die. It was bad. Yeah.
Yep. Always, when you get in the industry, if you're not sure, just ask. You'll get a very easy answer. I've seen a lot of gas fires over the years, and caused a couple myself. You should always be very conscientious when working with gas. It's messy, eyebrows gone, everything else. Moving on, and make sure when working with the Teflon pan, like we mentioned, always use a rubber spatula. Something interesting about rubber spatulas, they're not all the same. We don't buy them because of their colors. We buy them, the color of the handle dictates what the purpose is. So for example, once you get into industry, if you notice that the handle is a white handle, that is a low temperature spatula and designed for pastry use or cold preparation only. Whereas when you get into industry and you see this maroon colored handle, that is designed for high temperature cooking. So two radically different uses. So make sure you don't grab that white handle spatula and start cooking, because otherwise you're going to cream your eggs with plastic. It's not good. Moving on to the next thing. Does anybody have any questions about the equipment? Anyone? All right, ladies and gents, moving on to our next topic. We talked about the eggs and how we purchase them. Very, very important. This is what you'll see for eggs in the restaurant industry. They're not those little boxes like you're familiar with at the home use, because we do go through quite a bit of eggs. It's a very common thing. So in the resorts that I've run, we'll go through 20, 25, 30 of these boxes per week because it's a lot of eggs. It's not unusual to sell 600 to 800 eggs per day, and that's not a lot. So it goes rather quick. Kosher salt, everybody, is a kitchen staple, and it is something that we really need to stick with. Make sure that you avoid using any type of table salt in your kitchen at home. It does have iodine, and we don't want to add iodine to our food. It's bad. And kosher salt is flaked, it sticks better, and you'll actually add a little bit less. So it's different when seasoning with kosher salt. Whole butter is essential for eggs, right? No vegetable oil. We like butter, butter, and butter. It's sold in 30-pound cases. We do not buy blocks of butter. We buy 30-pound cases. And in the kitchen, we only use unsalted butter. So very, very important. Make sure they get all the salted butter. And if anybody is inquiring out there right now, put it to bed, no margarine. We don't do margarine. We don't know what margarine is. The people that make margarine don't know what margarine is. And when we know that, we don't like to put that inside our bodies. It's mostly water. So when you go to cook it, it really kind of defeats the purpose of adding oil into the pan. Chef Suzanne, do you have anything to tack on to the margarine?
I actually will, because this week it's going to be more evident than ever, because this week, holidays, let's make holidays this week, is that right?
Mm-hmm.
And that is one where normally I will see at least one or two people, well, it's the same, butter and margarine, they're the same. I got margarine at home, and try to make their hollandaise with margarine and then wonder why their hollandaise isn't coming out right. They are not interchangeable. So be aware of that. So if you've got margarine at home, that's not going to work for these.
And margarine was originally released as, you know, a butter substitute and a healthy alternative to eating butter, which in reality it's actually worse for you than eating butter because of all the chemicals and preservatives that's in it. So if you're going to consume fat, consuming fat is not bad for you. It's something that the human body needs. It's the amount of fat that you consume that is bad for you. So always remember that. All right, ladies and gents, it may seem a bit trivial to learn how to cook over easy eggs. However, it is an essential skill to learn how to do it properly in the restaurant industry. Breakfast cooks are a special breed of their own. They can fly and produce a tremendous amount of food, generally by themselves or with one other cook on the line. I ran a DoubleTree hotel for a number of years, and we had a very, very high volume breakfast, and we had one breakfast cook that could kick out anywhere between 200 and 250 people per meal period. Very talented, and they know how to cook the eggs. Before we move forward with cooking eggs in any form, the key phrase to remember is go low and slow, right? There is no instant gratification when it comes to cooking an egg. Isn't that right, Chef Suzanne?
Yes, I will say low and slow very many times this week when I'm looking at eggs and assignments, because what you're not looking for is brown and crispy, blistered egg. Those are bad. So the key to that is, like Chef just said, low and slow, low and slow.
Yep. Absolutely. And the biggest mistake that people make when it comes to doing the eggs over easy or the poached eggs is they're in a hurry and they want to get it done quickly. The best thing to do is to follow this video that we're going to take a look at here in a second. This video is in your class page, and it is also in the weekly presentation. It's on the class page under research materials. I just want to point out a couple of things. We're not going to watch the entire video. These are beautiful eggs that just came down on that plate. There's no color, there's no fringe, there's no crispiness.
Are a prevalent staple of most breakfast menus. Quality in the egg makes a huge difference. The USDA grades eggs as B, A, or AA. AA grade are always preferable because they have a firm yolk and whites that spread less when cracked onto an open surface.
The older the egg, the more the spread you're going to get. So that's one way that we can tell. If we crack an egg and the yolk goes flat and the egg whites spread, then we know that they're mature. Oops.
In the egg makes a huge difference. The USDA grades eggs as B, A, or AA. AA grade are always preferable because they have a firm yolk and whites that spread less when cracked onto an open surface. Eggs are also graded by size, from jumbo to peewee. Commercial food operations use large size eggs, which is in the middle of the size spectrum. Proper storage of eggs is also very important. The best temperature to refrigerate eggs is between 36 and 38 degrees. Mastering the over-easy preparation for cooking eggs is a great place to start, as many.
So please be observant of the egg that's on the plate. This is what Chef Suzanne is going to be taking a look at this week. And there's also pictures in this presentation. Some of the things that you need to be looking for, it's fairly smooth on the surface. The hotter your pan, the more divots that you're going to develop from the oil popping in there. You want them to be smooth, low and slow. Low heat, you'll have a smooth surface. High heat, you're going to get lots of divots. These yolks are nice and runny. Okay, so the egg yolks have not set. Egg yolks set at about 165 degrees. So, you know, you want to make sure that you keep that pan nice and cool. Something else you'll notice, there is no brown or no fringe around the exterior of the eggs at all. Very, very important.
The other methods are modifications of this basic cooking process. First, break the eggs separately into individual ramekins. You want to keep them separate for now, and this process helps keep the yolks in one piece. At this point, we're going to...
I know that not everybody is quite yet mastered the art of cracking an egg with one hand yet. That is something, don't be embarrassed by that. It's a learned skill. Give yourself some time and practice. You're going to grab the egg, you push forward with your thumb, and then you pull back with your other two fingers. Always crack an egg on a flat surface, not the edge of a counter, because that's how you get the fine shells.
Add the butter or oil to the saute pan and place over medium heat. Non-stick pans work best.
Please, if you can avoid using oil for your eggs, that's best. I've always found that whole butter works best because you do get a little bit of moisture in there, which helps create a softer egg all the way around.
Slide the eggs into the pan and turn the heat to low. After about a minute, the whites will set. They will no longer appear translucent and begin to firm. When the whites set, gently flip the eggs.
Okay, now flipping. And I know Chef Suzanne's going to jump on this bandwagon here in just a second because she likes to talk about this. When you first start cooking, flipping can be a challenge in a saute pan. It's a wrist motion where you slide and pop, right? The saute pan is curved at the end because it's designed that you move the product to the end of the pan, and then you're going to flip it with your wrist back at your sternum and catch it. Most people get this arm thing going here and they end up with a rotator cuff. That's not what this is about. It's mostly wrist. Be patient. Chef Suzanne has got a tip for you to help you out.
I do have a tip. I will say I broke my wrist. I'm left-handed. I broke my wrist in high school and don't quite have the motion that I should. And so I just always assumed when I was in college that I could not flip things in a pan because I just couldn't figure it out. I just assumed it was wrist. And I had a chef that was like, that's nonsense. And so he gave me a pan and a slice of bread. And he made me walk around for an entire shift doing nothing but tossing the egg. And I was not allowed to go for distance, right? Because you're not looking for distance. You're just looking for that, in this case, a piece of bread to come up and just barely slide and lay flat back down in the pan. And I had to work and walk around for the whole day. And then when he was finally happy that I had done a good enough job of that, he took away my bread and gave me dried beans. And then I had to try and not drop dried beans all over the floor. But after that, I did great. So my tip is start with a slice of bread in a cold pan, just walk around your kitchen, and then try with some dried beans, see how many you can catch. if you can toss a piece of bread and you can toss some dried beans, or some dried rice, then you can flip an egg. And once you figure out how to flip the egg, you can flip an egg, you can flip anything in a pan. Doesn't get much harder than an egg. So try it. Make sure you step away from your stove, right? Because if you try doing it over your stove and it misses, then you're gonna be cleaning up egg off your stove, right? So
Yep.
it's a lot easier to clean up egg off your floor or your feet than your stove. So practice, you've got to be able to do it. And I was able to. So you can do it.
Any type of dried good, beans, rice, bread, anything like that. Croutons, I've had guys use before as well. It comes from practice and muscle memory. Remember to utilize that wrist quite a bit, and you're flipping it back at yourself. It's not a motion that we're born with. It's not something we come out of the womb knowing. It's something that we learn by practicing. So now is a great time to practice. It's a very inexpensive thing to do. So
cook until the egg white is set on both sides, but the yolk is still liquid. When it is finished cooking, remove from the pan and season to taste.
So that's enough of that video. One of the big things that Chef Susanna is going to be looking for this week is a lot of oil on the plate. We don't want to see oil on the plate. That's a bad sign that you added too much oil to your pan. If that happens, when you remove your eggs, make sure you take a clean paper towel and you can just kind of mop it up just a little bit to make it nice and clean. We never want to serve eggs sitting in a pool of oil. So does anybody have any questions about eggs over easy? Anyone? All right, ladies and gents, poached eggs quickly. Poaching eggs it's a very useful thing to know. In resorts, I used to work with Fairmont Hotels. We would poach 600 to 800 eggs at nighttime and then put them into an ice bath. And then when we had our buffet the next day, we would warm them. So there's a lot of different ways to go about this. One of the things you're going to notice is adding vinegar to the water. So if you have about a quart of water, you're going to want to add about a capful of white vinegar to that. That acidity in the vinegar helps offset the minerals in the water, which helps the egg whites to coagulate and stay together. So the acid in the water is very, very important. Something else you want to do is you want to make sure that your water does not boil. Boiling water will force the eggs to break apart and will defeat the purpose. You must go low and slow. You want to have your water about 185 degrees, which is right at a simmer. There's little bubbles starting to float up to the surface. That's one. Then step two, do not add all of your eggs to the water at the same time, because if you add room temperature eggs to warm water, guess what's going to happen to the temperature of the water? So you're going to swirl your water with a spoon, add an egg, gently swirl it, then you can add another egg, gently swirl it, let the temperature come back each time. Be patient. One of the things that, one of the tricks that I always like to use for poaching eggs is if you make a fist, you have a soft area right in this area, right between your thumb and your index finger, and once you press on that, that's how a poached egg should feel, and it should give you a sense of its doneness. We're going to watch this video here quickly.
Eggs are a prevalent staple of most breakfast menus. Quality in the egg, A or double egg.
We'll skip this
Double egg
part.
breakfast over a large area. Commercial food operation is by spectrum. Robert Storage of eggs is distributed refrigerated eggs is between 36 traditional and classic breakfast items, and an important skill to master. The goal is to end up with a round, compact mass rather than spread all over the pan. First, break the eggs separately into individual ramekins. You want to keep them separate for now, and this helps keep the yolks in one piece. Simmer, do not boil 1 quart of water at 185 to 200 degrees Fahrenheit.
If you're going to be doing a large quantity of eggs, 6 to 8 eggs in a smaller pan like that, make sure that you keep that water a little bit closer to 200 degrees. It'll help you with your recovery time. As well, if you take a notice of the pan that he's using, you don't need to use a big pot with a lot of water in this. He's only got about 2 inches of water, and that's about all that's required.
We'll appreciate every single
Add
time.
salt and vinegar if necessary. Add eggs one at a time into the simmering water.
He said add salt and water or salt and vinegar if necessary. Please remember, if you live in an area that has very hard water with a very high lime content, for example, your water faucets are covered in white or your showers turn white, that means you have very hard water. You'll probably have to add a little bit of extra vinegar to keep those egg whites together.
But her life was not as beautiful as it seemed. Miss Honey had a deep, dark secret. Though it caused her great pain, she did not let it interfere with her teaching.
I like to swirl the water because I think it helps to get the water around the egg completely. He's not swirling his water, which is fine. You don't necessarily have to, but it's my preference.
Cook for about 2 to 4 minutes, making sure the water returns to at least 185 degrees Fahrenheit. Look for the whites to become coagulated and no longer translucent. Remove the eggs with a slotted spoon and drain on paper towel. If necessary, you can also trim the edges to clean up the appearance. Plate and serve immediately. Your poached eggs should be bright.
So beautifully done. Make sure that you pay attention to the last part that he did. Don't serve your poached eggs in a pool of water with water all over the plate, because that means you didn't drain them well. That's something Chef Suzanne will be keeping an eye out for this week as well. So make sure you keep a close eye on that. Does anybody have any questions about poached eggs?
Something else I see with the poached eggs to make sure that you're doing is make sure that your egg white is actually set. I see quite a few with the poached eggs that maybe they think it's still water, and so they take it out and it's still, the egg white hasn't completely set yet. So make sure that you are not taking those eggs out too early. And that's where stirring them around helps. That little bit of swirl kind of helps rotate them and can help with that.
Yes, absolutely. Make sure you are using a slotted spoon for this exercise to allow the excess water to drain back into the pot. It's very, very important. So ladies and gents, Tonika, what's your question?
Are the yolks supposed to be solid from a poached egg? I've never had poached eggs before. They're supposed to be runny.
They're supposed to be runny traditionally. However, you will have customers that do order the egg yolks more firm or thicker, so to speak. So be conscientious of that. But traditionally, the egg yolks are going to be runny. And I have some pictures of those here in the weekly presentation that we're going to take a look at here in just a minute. Does that answer your question? Thumbs up. All right. Ladies and gents, moving on to our final topic this evening, we're going to talk hollandaise. I'm going to guess most of you have made mayonnaise already. Is that correct? Has everybody made mayonnaise?
Week one.
Oh, yeah. We've all made mayonnaise, right? And mayonnaise, hollandaise, they're both examples of emulsions, right? Which is a temporary suspension of two non-binding ingredients. So the hollandaise process is very, very similar in nature to the mayonnaise process. The biggest problem that Chef Suzanne and I run into with this exercise is people adding the oil too quickly and not whisking the egg yolks vigorously enough during the assembly process. Once again, low and slow. So once you have cooked your egg yolks over a double boiler, over some steam, you're going to be whisking vigorously, incorporating air and adding droplets, little tiny droplets. Add a little bit, let it absorb. Add a little bit more and let it absorb again. That seems to be traditionally the biggest challenge that we have. Well, let's take a quick look at this one.
The Hollandaise is perhaps the most famous of Escoffier's mother sauces. This kitchen staple is used for a number of dishes, as an accent on meat and vegetables, or most notably, as the sauce for eggs Benedict. Knowing how to create a great Hollandaise sauce is a standard for most kitchens. For this mise en place, we have clarified butter. To make clarified butter, you need to melt butter in a saucepan. Once melted, remove the foam and milk solids that gather at the top.
Remember that a pound of butter is 80% fat, 20% milk solids, and water. So when you melt the butter over low heat, once again, not high heat, you're going to cause that to separate. The fat will separate from the milk solids and the water. To the surface will float the milk solids. That is the white substance that you'll see on the surface. You're going to take a spoon and skim that off. Then you'll pour your fat off, and then down at the bottom will be about 18% water. And you want to avoid getting the water mixed in. So very, very important.
Repeat until no solids are visible and you're left with a clear golden liquid. The other ingredients in a Hollandaise sauce are egg yolks, lemon juice or vinegar, salt, and cayenne pepper. To begin, put the egg yolks and the lemon juice in a stainless steel bowl and whisk vigorously until the mixture is thick and has doubled in volume. Place that bowl over a saucepan of barely simmering water and continue whisking to avoid scrambling the eggs. Begin drizzling in the clarified butter.
This is an essential part to making Hollandaise. He talks about putting it over the top of a double boiler. Your Hollandaise, your final product, is a very smooth and silky sauce. If you put the egg yolks on top of the boiling water and then you walk away, answer the phone, or drink a cup of coffee, or use the restroom, guess what you're going to have when you get back? Because eggs cook at 176 degrees, so you're going to have scrambled eggs. When he says whisk vigorously over the double boiler, make sure that you follow those instructions. Make sure that you have a towel in your hand to keep a hold of that bowl because it becomes awfully hot.
Whisking non-stop until the sauce has thickened and doubled in volume. Remove from the heat and whisk in your seasonings.
Please take note of the fact that initially he's adding that oil extremely slow to create the emulsion. What's happening is the oil is binding with the lecithin and the cholesterol to create the emulsion. You will know that you've created your emulsion because the Hollandaise mixture is going to begin to get thicker and thicker and thicker, and that's what you're looking for. If your Hollandaise sauce is not getting thick at that stage, then you know that you haven't created an emulsion, and it's also very shiny at the top. You can try to take a separate bowl, add 1 ice cube to it, and then whisk in your broken Hollandaise sauce, and sometimes that'll bring it back.
If the sauce gets too thick, slowly drizzle in water until the correct consistency. As a mother sauce, Hollandaise is the foundation for many other sauces. Most notable.
So there you have it. That video, once again, is available for you to watch. It's underneath the research materials. Then it's also on the weekly presentation here, so you can refer back to it as needed. Make sure that you read and you understand the hollandaise sauce, the poached eggs, and the eggs over easy before proceeding. Chef Suzanne, anything to add on hollandaise? Other than the fact that it tastes great.
It is good. I actually was just putting that in the chat box. If I see hollandaise on a menu, the odds are good. Whatever it's with, I'm probably going to order that. I absolutely adore hollandaise, unless it's Denny's. I don't order hollandaise at Denny's. That makes me nervous.
Mm-hmm.
But if I'm at a nice restaurant and I see hollandaise, it doesn't matter if it's breakfast, brunch, lunch, dinner. I'm probably going to order whatever that is. I just love it. So I think hollandaise is amazing. If you struggled with your mayonnaise, the odds are good you may struggle with your hollandaise. You may end up scrambling your eggs and have to start again, your egg yolks. You may drizzle your clarified butter in too fast, and like Chef said, you won't get it to emulsify, and it'll look kind of shiny. It actually, I think if it's not emulsified correctly, it actually somehow ends up looking like orange juice. So that's not good. So I don't know why it does. I just always think it looks like orange juice. So if it looks like orange juice in a bowl, something's not right. It is possible to fix a hollandaise. Like Chef said, you can sometimes repair a broken hollandaise. When you're just starting out, though, the best advice is try again. Just call it a loss and start again. The key thing is, imagine me standing behind you and telling you, slow down, slow down. Whisk fast or butter slow. Should be just drip, 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 drip. Whisking like your arm's going to fall off. Just barely dripping that butter. Right? It should take a while. Your arm should be sore, just like, right? Everybody's arms sore when y'all made mayonnaise? Oh, yeah. It's kind of like that. It's going to be very similar, except it's even a little more finicky because now you're dealing with hot versus cold. You're dealing with cooking, so you're dealing with temperatures that you didn't have to worry about before. So you can do it, definitely. But if that hollandaise starts to break, it's sometimes easier to just set it aside, not give it much more thought, and just move on and try it again, and don't get yourself all stressed out.
Absolutely, absolutely. And like I mentioned just a moment ago, the most important thing you can do before you make this, sit down, read it, understand it, watch the video, read it, understand it, watch the video. That's really going to help you out in the long run, and it'll make it a lot easier for you. We're going to take a look at a couple of things here real quick before we move on to our assignment. This is in the weekly presentation as well as the mise en place required for the eggs over easy. I did mention that I prefer to use whole butter, and that's perfectly fine if you do for this assignment. No substitutions, please. I don't know what you would substitute. If you don't eat eggs, I don't know how to teach you how to make eggs over easy without eggs. So please do your best to do it. Here's a couple of pictures of some eggs that are very acceptable and look good. So these are here for you. Poached eggs, everybody. We talked. We had a good question a few minutes ago about whether the egg yolk should be runny or not, and this is a prime example of what Chef Suzanne will be looking for this week when you submit your assignments. These are some fantastic looking poached eggs. This piece of equipment is called a spider, and they're very, very prevalent in the restaurant industry. It's what we use to lift the poached eggs out of the water, which allows it to drain. So this is the poached eggs in a nutshell. And then the hollandaise sauce is pretty straightforward. Make sure that you clarify that butter first, and then also make sure that understand what tempering is, because tempering is involved in the process of making hollandaise sauce. Tempering is you have two different ingredients that are about the same temperature. So if you have extremely hot butter that you just clarified, and you're trying to mix it with egg yolks that are only about 110 degrees, it's going to be very difficult to create that emulsion. You want to make sure they're both about the same temperature. So you're going to have to let that butter cool slightly before you begin working with it. And then you have your egg yolks in a bowl with water, and you're going to add a few drops of lemon juice. Over the double boiler, you're going to begin whisking vigorously. Make sure you don't let that pot of water boil. It'll get too hot and force the eggs to cook too quickly. Also, make sure the water level is down below the bottom of the bowl, because that will also force the eggs to cook too quickly. Whisk it until you get to a ribbon-like stage, and then you're going to take it off the heat. You're done cooking it, so no more heat. And then you're going to whisk vigorously and add drops of the butter in there. Drop, drop, drop. And then the final thing you're going to do once it becomes thick and creamy is you're going to add your lemon juice, salt, pepper, taste it, make sure it's good, and then go ahead and plate it up for Chef Suzanne. Any questions about that, anybody? Ladies and gents, questions, crickets? Yeah. All right, ladies and gents. Did you have a question?
Yes, I did.
Yeah, go ahead. What is it?
Yeah, my goal is do you do one of our assignments, right? Because he says back that I've been having problems getting them in on time because I've been really busy, like company out every weekend. So my goal is just to try and turn everything and then call you guys. That's my goal, and then
you can do it.
You and the chef. Yes, sir. Yeah, I know it was a challenge this week. It was 3 I'm behind, but I want to do that. I practice every day, and then because of it all week.
Yeah, we trust me. We do.
I like breakfast.
we do understand it. And you know, everybody's got a lot going on in life, and it's not as easy as it seems. And
no excuses though for me, so I'm just gonna really try to plug it in next few weeks. And math has been really hard for me too, so that's been kind of hard, the math. And other class as well.
Yeah.
Purchasing class has really been like, I have to really just kind of, I don't like math, but that's my only problem.
Someday you'll be running a couple of kitchens and you'll look back on this and you'll just laugh.
Well, that's my goal, to have my own business, to do that. And that's my goal.
Yeah.
Chef, we've got a couple of
I'll reach
questions
out.
in the box.
I'll be reaching out.
Thank you. Yeah. What's
Really good questions in the box asking how long does hollandaise keep for?
Hollandaise, okay, as a rule of thumb, we work with foods that can stay in what we call the temperature danger zone, or the TDZ, for about 4 hours. That's in between 35 and 140 degrees. So your hollandaise, when it's on the line, you're going to want to keep it in a thicker, more insulated container, like a crock. And you can keep it in an area that's about 90 degrees, and it should last you for that 4-hour time period. You cannot reheat hollandaise. It is a single-use item. Once it's done, it's done. Kiss it goodbye. Hopefully you make exactly what you need for the day. Does that answer the question?
I believe it did, Chef.
Yep. Any more questions? Nope. Let's take a quick look at our assignment page this week. So we are cooking our sausage from last week. So we made the sausage and we froze it. We were supposed to put it on a little sheet pan with some paper and all that kind of good stuff. We're going to pull it out, let it thaw. There's a couple of different ways that you can cook the sausage. I know Chef Suzanne's probably going to love a cast iron skillet, because I love that way. Once again, you don't want to go very high heat on that, because you get that crunchiness on the outside of the sausage. Well, you may like it, but it's generally for industry. We don't do that because some people don't, some people do. So we try to go right down the middle. Make sure you do cook that sausage to an internal temperature of at least 160 degrees. Very, very important. In industry, when we cook sausage, most likely we're going to be doing it in the oven at 350 degrees on a sheet pan with parchment paper, which allows us to cook the sausage a little bit more evenly. That's also the same way that we cook bacon in industry. We do not do it on the stovetop because it would be impossible to match our volume. So this week you are going to cook the sausage that you prepared last week. Make sure that you have your great self-identification photo with your piece of paper signifying week 4, right? Make sure those uniforms are sharp. Make sure you have all your sanitizing supplies. Everything done. Mise en place for all 3 assignments must be displayed neatly. There was a fantastic picture of a mise en place layout at the beginning of the class that Chef Suzanne showed. I was very, very impressed. Finished cooked golden brown on the sausage. Finished cooked golden brown, cut in half to see doneness. Very important. On the eggs over easy, Chef Suzanne would like to see 2 properly cooked over easy eggs plated. Then you're going to want to break the eggs open so she can see the yolks. And then for the poached eggs, you're going to want to show the poaching liquid at the proper temperature. That's a little low, 160. You're probably going to want to go between 180 and 200, just like the video says. And then eggs poaching in liquid after 10 seconds. That way you could see it shaping and holding together. Eggs out of the water on a plate, whole and intact, and not in a pool of water. Remember, he pulled it out, he put it on a napkin to cool it down. And then you're going to break those eggs open to show the runniness of the egg yolk. And don't forget your narrative this week. Very, very important. Any questions? Chef Suzanne?
I will say that when it comes to these assignments, this is a good one to make sure that you are getting all of your required photos. Don't forget that you need the egg on the plate and just whole, and then you're going to cut it in half and let me see the yolk. So don't forget those because they are crucial to make sure that you have done these particular techniques correctly. I know that some are wondering, wait, hollandaise isn't on there. It is not. Do not have to make hollandaise, but this is a great week to do it because you're going to have a house full of clarified butter and you're going to have a bunch of eggs. So this is a good week to do it. If you've never made it, try it. Absolutely try it. And make sure that you're watching your feedback. I like to give you all sorts of great information each week, especially if you have issues. So if you had issues and you struggled, make sure you're listening to your feedback. If you decide to do it again, you'll have some different tips and tricks and information, right? So it's all very personalized. I'm grading your assignment in front of me. It's not anybody else's, it's yours. So I'm telling you what I'm thinking about your dishes. So make sure that you are checking out that feedback, right?
All right, ladies and gents, we hope you have a great week. We look forward to hearing from you if you have any questions. I know you guys are going to rock the house on week 4. Chef Suzanne and I are very confident and looking forward to everybody's assignment. Have a great day, everybody. Take care.